Roland Barthes, From Structure to Play in the World of Texts. Hello and welcome to the discourse. Roland Barthes stands as a pivotal figure in the 20th century literary theory and cultural criticism. His intellectual journey famously bridged the influential movements of structuralism and post-structuralism. Initially, he was a leading proponent of structuralist thought. He applied a systematic scientific analysis to the world of science and narratives, inspired by the science of linguistics. However, his work gradually evolved to challenge the very structuralist principles he had helped to establish. He moved towards a more playful, open-ended and deconstructionist approach to meaning. This journey reflects a profound shift from seeking stable structures beneath cultural phenomena to celebrating the instability and plurality of meaning itself. His ideas continue to shape how we read, write, and interpret everything from classic novels to modern advertisements. Major works and conceptual explorations. Barthes' influence is cemented through a series of groundbreaking books that map his theoretical evolution. Among his most important works is Mythologies, a collection of essays that deciphers the hidden ideologies in everyday French popular culture, from wrestling to detergent ads. Writing Degree Zero was an early work that examined the political and historical dimensions of literary style. The essay, The Death of the Author, is a seminal post-structuralist manifesto that radically redefined the relationships between writer, reader, and the literary object. Its companion piece, From Work to Text, further developed these ideas. Finally, in his book S/Z, Barthes performed a line-by-line analysis of a Balzac short story, simultaneously demonstrating and deconstructing structuralist methods. It is in this book that he laid out some of his most practical concepts for analysis. The Death of the Author, Liberating the Text. Perhaps Barthes' most famous and provocative idea is the death of the author. This concept marks his clear break from structuralism and his entry into post-structuralism. In his revolutionary essay of the same name, Barthes launches a direct attack on the traditional role of the author as the ultimate source and authority of a text's meaning. He argues that to give a text an author is to impose a single theological meaning on it, which is limiting and restrictive practice. For Barthes, a text is not a vessel containing the author's intended message. Instead, meaning is created in the act of reading. The moment writing begins, the author's identity and intentions become irrelevant. The author is figuratively dead. This is because a text is woven entirely from language, and language itself is a vast, impersonal system of science that exists long before any single author uses it. No writer is truly original. Every text is a tissue of quotations drawn from the infinite library of culture, a concept known as intertextuality. This death liberates the text, allowing it to be a multi-dimensional space where a multitude of meanings can mix and collide. For example, when we read a Shakespeare play like Hamlet, we don't need to dig into Shakespeare's personal life to understand it. In fact, doing so would limit the play. Is it a political commentary, a psychological study of grief, a philosophical debate about life and death? The dead Shakespeare cannot tell us which is correct. The meaning is produced by each new reader in each new generation who brings their own knowledge and experiences to the text. Consequently, Barthes declares that the birth of the reader must be at the cost of the death of the author. This elevates the reader from a passive consumer to an active producer of meaning, making every reading a unique event. Since every reader is different, every reading is, in a sense, a misreading or a new interpretation, and this plurality is something to be celebrated, not feared. From work to text, a new way of seeing literature. Building on the death of the author, Barthes further developed his theory by distinguishing between the traditional work and the modern text. A work is what we normally think of as a book. It is a fixed, finite object you can hold in your hand like a novel on a shelf. It is seen as a closed, authoritative creation that points back to its author. We talk about reading a work by Charles Dickens. The text, however, is not a physical object but a dynamic, methodological field of play, activity, and production. It is experienced only in the act of reading and is held in language. Think of the difference between a closed door, the work, and an open, interactive website, the text. The text is radically open, plural, and resists any single interpretation. It is not defined by its author but by its relationship with other texts and the reader. This shift from work to text marks a move from seeing literature as a stable product to understanding it as an ongoing, unstable process. Readerly and writerly texts, passive consumption versus active production. In his book S/Z, Barthes introduces the crucial binary of the readerly and the writerly text, which helps to illustrate the difference between a work and a text in practice. The readerly text is associated with classic realistic literature like most 19th century novels. A good example is a Sherlock Holmes story by Arthur Conan Doyle. These texts present a seemingly natural and straightforward world. The meaning is fixed and predetermined by the author. The characters are standard representations: the brilliant detective, the loyal friend, the baffled police inspector, and the plot moves in a logical cause and effect manner towards a clear resolution. The reader of a readerly text is a passive consumer, expected to follow the narrative without challenging it, simply absorbing the meaning that the text provides. The goal is to uncover the truth that the author has planted there, like solving a puzzle where the answer is already set. In stark contrast, the writerly text is a modern, often challenging construct that actively draws attention to its own artifice and structure. It does not offer a single comfortable meaning. A prime example is James Joyce's Ulysses. This novel is famously difficult, filled with stream of consciousness narration, linguistic experiments, and a complex web of references to history, literature, and philosophy. It does not tell a simple story. Instead, it demands that the reader actively engage in the production of its meanings. The reader becomes a collaborator or co-writer as they read, forced to dismantle and reassemble the book's codes to make sense of it. The writerly text is the ideal for Barthes, as it transforms reading from consumption into a form of writing, a creative act in its own right. The 5 codes, a tool for unlocking plurality. To analyze how meaning is generated in a narrative, Barthes proposed 5 codes in S/Z. These codes are not rigid structures but rather flexible, overlapping lenses through which a text can be understood. Their use emphasizes the plurality of meaning, showing that a single story can be read in multiple ways simultaneously. The Hermeneutic Code. This is the code of puzzles and mysteries. It involves the elements of a story that pose questions or enigmas, creating suspense that drives the narrative forward, the to be continued effect. In a detective story, the central question, who killed the victim, is the core hermeneutic code. Any clue or red herring that deepens the mystery is part of this code. The purpose is to keep the reader asking, what will happen next, or what is the truth? The Proairetic code. This is the code of actions. It refers to the sequence of small events and behaviors that build plot tension. While the hermeneutic code is about questions, the Proairetic code is about the end then of the story. For example, the spy entered the building, he opened the secret file, and he heard a footstep behind him are all Proairetic actions. They create a sequence of anticipation about the immediate future of the plot. The Semic code or semantic code. This code deals with atmosphere, theme, and character. It consists of the connotations that certain elements in the text evoke. For instance, in a Gothic novel, a description of a crumbling mansion, howling wind, and flickering candlelight all contribute to the Semic code of gloom and decay. A character repeatedly described as wolf-like activates the Semic code of cunning and predatory instinct. It is about the extra-literal meaning that words and images carry. The symbolic code. This code is the field of broader, often oppositional patterns of meaning. It is where the text sets up large thematic contrasts that organize its deeper meaning. Common symbolic codes include the opposition between life and death, male and female, nature and culture, or freedom and confinement. For example, in Wuthering Heights, the stark contrast between the wild, stormy moors and the oppressive, orderly Thrushcross Grange sets up a powerful symbolic code of wild passion versus civilized restraint. The cultural code. This code comprises references to a shared body of knowledge, science, history, religion, philosophy, or common sense, that anchors the text in a specific time and place. If a character is called a real Napoleon, it invokes the cultural code of historical knowledge about ambition and conquest. A reference to Oedipus complex calls upon a body of psychoanalytic knowledge. This code provides a kind of common sense foundation for the story, appealing to what everyone knows. Conclusion. A lasting legacy. Roland Barthes' journey from a structuralist seeking underlying rules to a post-structuralist celebrating the free play of meaning forever changed literary and cultural studies. By killing the author, he gave birth to the powerful modern reader. By distinguishing between the closed work and the open text, he showed us that literature is not a monument to be worshipped, but a playground to be explored. His concept of the readerly and writerly provide a clear framework for judging our experience of a book, and his 5 quotes offer a practical toolkit for unlocking the multiple meanings within any story. Ultimately, Barthes taught us that a text's unity lies not in its origin but in its destination. The true meaning of a text is not found in the writer's past intention but in the reader's present experience, a democratic and endlessly renewable source of intellectual pleasure. So this is it for today. We will continue to discuss literary theory of English literature. Please stay connected with the discourse. Thanks and regards.